Right. Hey, B-siders. Welcome to a brand new episode of my humble podcast. I'm, as always, very happy that you're here. And today, I have to say, I'm a little bit more nervous than usual, but I'm sure it will all work all right. I've got a really incredible artist on the show today, and his name is Abel Hart. Now, if you don't know who he is, guys, you got to go on Instagram or TikTok to check him out. You will certainly come across his music because, especially his song Whisper, has literally blown up. So yeah, go and check it out if you haven't. If you have, well, you're probably going to be in for a little bit of a treat today because we're going to talk all about obviously his journey and hopefully a little bit more about his take on music on a personal level as well as professionally. So welcome, Abel, to my humble corner of the internet and podcast world.
What's going on? I appreciate you having me. I love getting the opportunity to have these discussions, these conversations. So I appreciate it, and it's super awesome to be here.
Yeah, well, you're very welcome. I'm so glad we could make it work. It's really exciting. So thank you as well.
Definitely, me too as well.
Right. So before we dive in, for some people who might not know you, which I'm going to do a side eye to people, do you want to introduce yourself a little bit? Because I know you obviously, I mean, your backstory is, that's what kind of drawn me to you. Your backstory is really interesting for me. Like, what happened to you, that you had an other dream and then that kind of shattered and now
Right.
you're a musician. Can you dive into that a little bit and share what happened and why you're on the path you're on now?
Yeah, definitely. So music, I guess from the start, music was never something that I was ever going to do as a career. My father, though, that
Mm-hmm.
is what it is, and it was and still is what he does. But sometimes I say, when things are so close to you, you tend to not realize it, like something as a possibility. I grew up with my father always working on music, doing music. He's 100% or two as well. So he mix masters, produce, sound designs, engineers, does and sings, does everything. I grew up, my mother, when I was a baby, probably too young for her to do this, but she would take me to all the clubs and all the places that he would play when I was a baby, and even growing up as a kid. So I was so used to it. And again, it was so close to me. So I never, it wasn't, once I started to get older, it wasn't like, I'm going to do this. Plus, I think I was super, so you spoke a little bit about what I used to do before I did music, which was snowboarding. So I used to travel around the world and compete for snowboarding. So really, even though it was so close to me and maybe I didn't see it, really for me growing up, I loved anything, anything extreme. Really, it's like any sort. If I could skateboard, snowboard, bike, motocross, anything that I could do that was, I don't know. I just, the adrenaline rush, I think, and my brain works so fast all the time. So I think it, like, not suppressed it, but I think it matched it perfectly. And so, yeah, I started doing that after I grew up. I think we moved, I was born in Hershey, Pennsylvania, like where they make Hershey chocolate. I was born in the Hershey Medical Center. So I moved, I want to say, from there to like right outside of Philadelphia area when I was maybe 5 or so. And around that time, not to super backdate all of this, but around that time, I, I just fell in love with, I got into skateboarding a lot. So I started skateboarding, and one time randomly, right after we moved, we went up to, it was a mountain in the Poconos outside of Philadelphia, and it was called Blue Mountain. And my mom would took myself and my cousins just to go learn. You know how some people go to the ski slopes and they want to, learn or take a lesson. That's how it was. That was the first time I'd ever done it, and my cousins. So it was a cool experience. We went. Now, mind you, I don't think any of us expected. I definitely did it, and my mom did it. But when I went for the first time, the instructor, like after the lesson was done, they just gave my mom the money back and was like, he doesn't need to like continue, like he doesn't need to do this, like he knows what he's doing. And my mom, I'm sure, was more like shocked. Like it just came very natural, I guess is what I'm trying to say. And that was the first thing. And mind you, I was super young, so that was the first thing that really made sense, and that I also was so passionate about. Like I loved it. That's all I wanted to do nonstop all the time. And then especially having the external validation and someone saying that, and then being around other people who are like, oh my gosh, You know, you're so good at it. I think because I also grew up and I still struggle with, you know, insecurities. I mean, just like I'm sure most of us do. You know, I'm just at a point in my life where uh, I could talk about them, and I'm not insecure about the insecurities that I've had and I do consistently still have. I think being able to express them as well helps a ton.
Mm-hmm.
You know, being able
Yeah,
to vent about them.
it does.
So yeah, so I mean, long story short, without like going into all the details, I traveled. So I started going every weekend. My mom took out a second job, worked down at the mountain, like selling stuff at the food court, so that so she could pay for me to go snowboarding and get a lift pass. And I started riding for the mountain. So I got with the team that was on the mountain, and then as things progressed, it was like, well, if you want to do this, like you want to take this more serious, you have to start competing. So then started going to competitions and then getting around other people. And then other parents were there, obviously, because there was a younger group of kids. And my mom's a talker like me. She likes, where I
Yep.
probably get it from. I love having conversations, and I'm so interested and fascinated by so many different facets of other people's lives and careers and choices that they've made.
Mm.
She's always been like that as well. So she started connecting with other people. And then again, I connected with another team that traveled pretty much all over the world, and they became like second family to me. And yeah, just started competing and traveling. And obviously in that career choice, I feel like any sport, or definitely extreme sports, just comes with the territory as far as injury. You know, it just comes with it. You're going to break things, and that's just what happens. You know, you hope you're able to sustain it long enough, your body at least,
Yeah.
definitely your mental as well. But that's just what happened. So I broke. I'd be a shorter list to tell you all the things that I haven't broke throughout that time. And
Mm.
then I want to say, I don't know how many years in it was, but I started maybe around 7 or 8, maybe. Like the dates are all mixed up for me. But when I was around 15, I want to say, I don't know if I had my driver's license at the time, but I had one of my worst accidents that one of the worst accidents that I've ever had. And I had fractured my lower back, which definitely put me out. You know, you break things and uh, you recover and you train and you get better, you know, if not better than you were before after the injury. So but this one was different, you know, it just put me out, obviously being my back and that being such a huge part of any human diet, you know, just the way the body works. And it threw me back into, I guess, normal school. Cause I was going to school, but I would only go for a semester. And then the team that I was with, we had a traveling tutor, which was super awesome because it gave us the opportunity to continuously travel without having to, you know, go back and forth and take flights just to go to school. And competitions were during school time as well. So, so yeah, I jumped back into the schooling. And after the injury and not being able, I'd been away for snowboarding. For me, which seemed like forever, but you know, a week of having the injury turns into a month, a year. And I kind of fell into the normal, which was a super big leap for me because I wasn't used to schooling, and I didn't, you know, as far as authority, we had coaches in snowboarding and everything, but it was a lot more free based in the sense of, you know, freestyle is, you know, oh my, you know, do this or tweak this, whatever you're doing, you know, not like you have to do this and it's everything that you don't want to do. You
Yeah,
know,
sure.
yeah, that wasn't something I was used to. And definitely, I feel like a lot of other people and stories that I hear, they also relate to that in the sense of just
Mm.
authority and not wanting to really do things when there's other things that you want to do. Now, mind you, the other thing that I wanted to do was snowboard, and it was more external. You know, I couldn't
Mm.
do that because just it wasn't up to me. You know, it's just my body and what had
Said
happened.
no.
And
Yeah.
yeah, and again, I think that was my purpose, right? That's what I felt. That was all I wanted to do. Nothing else. If I didn't want to, that's it. You know, that's all that I thought about.
Yeah.
This, if I can't do that, I don't want to do
There's
anything else.
nothing.
And it's just, oh, yeah. And it's
Yeah.
over for me. That's it.
Mm. Yeah.
And when you're so young, right, it's such a small minded way of thinking. Like it's not true. There's many things
Yes.
that any human could do. Even if you have, yeah, like fast forward now, I do so many different things in which
You
I love
do.
to do, but they're you know, they're outside of even which what I love to do. And it's just having that mindset. But mind you, again, going back,
Mm,
you don't think about that stuff when you're young. You're like, I just want to do
no,
this, and this is all I want to do. And if I can't do it, I don't want to do anything else.
that's
Uh,
right. Yeah. So when you
and
had that
yeah,
accident, sorry to interrupt you there, but so when you had that accident, did that, I mean, obviously from what you're saying, I can feel the passion you still kind of have for snowboarding, I guess. If you could,
me, snow,
do
I
you still,
don't.
you don't do it anymore, or do you still go
No,
snowboarding?
I don't. No, I've gone like once or twice, but
Not
I
anymore.
always say like I have a problem taking it easy, and uh,
Okay,
I think
fair
it's
enough.
just it's yeah it's now because I do music and this is what I do. There's so much more.
Other stuff going on.
You know,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah, for
Yeah,
sure.
cool. So obviously that was the turning point in your life and having parents that already have music there. So when did you kind of discover that, okay, music is good for me, music is my new passion? When was that moment you had that click?
Right, for sure. So yeah, going to school at that point, losing snowboard, then going to school, I fell into, I say, uh, I don't want to curse on here, but I say I got the case of the efforts. So because I'd lost what was my purpose, this is all I
Mm-hmm.
want to do. I lost that external reasons. I didn't make that choice. I mean, and obviously it was super upsetting at the time. I don't think
Yeah.
I realized that. It was just more like, what? Why me? Why is this happening to me? I got the case of the efforts, and I just didn't associate with, you know, like attracts like, and the energy and the vibe and the frequency that I was putting out was also attracting other people that were also on that frequency. You know,
Mm.
I didn't know all this, you know, at the time, but looking back, and again, everyone's going through their own thing in life. You know, we're all here just essentially just trying to figure it out,
Oh
right?
gosh, yeah, yeah, for
And
sure.
you know, for sure. Uh, so yeah, and that's where more so like my injury, where I started dabbling with, uh, you know, just uh, abuse, you know, of pills, and
Mm.
for me, you'll hear a lot of like stories with athletes in general. It's because they had an injury and then they had to take something. That wasn't the case for me. I was very
Okay.
anti ever taking anything because I grew up in the people that I would train with. It was very, my mentality was, if I take anything, it's going to make me 10 times worse. I'm not going to be able to do whatever I do. Like, I'm not going to have the ability and the talent or everything, the hard work that I put in, it's going to be gone. So I just
Mm.
never did it. But now this new case of the efforts, uh, I just, nothing mattered. And again, I didn't just leave and then I felt bad and I was sad and I was depressed and I just went to that. I think I was still against it until, you know, the choices that I was making out of being angry or upset and sad and definitely depressed of losing what I love most in this world, uh, led me to externally seek, you know, fulfillment from things that were definitely not in my best interest. I think I kind of wanted to put it on myself. If I look back at it, like I feel like this is kind of a like a therapy, you know, session a little bit because, right?
Sorry.
Because I mean, no, don't feel sorry. I think these are great things that whether it's me or anybody else, I think these
Yeah,
are things as human beings in order to evolve and grow in life, we need to have these conversations with people. You know, I don't think
exactly.
it makes sense for everyone to do this socially. I definitely don't because there's obviously you get a lot of backlash and depending on where you're at in your life and whether it's your recovery or just your journey of life.
Mm.
But it is super therapeutic. I feel like to have these conversations and super important for oneself going through anything or like I said, this journey of life of us just trying to figure it out, you know? Um,
I
but
don't
I
think we ever
started,
will fully, but we're trying our best, I guess. So that's
yeah,
all we
you
can
know,
do,
and
you know?
for sure. And I think that's like that's what needs to happen, you know? And I think we're so caught up with, you know, we can be so caught up as human beings with nothing, it's not the perfect scenario. Or my biggest thing is excuses. Like we have such great excuses for why we shouldn't do the thing we know we need to do. I don't know what it is. It's just human nature back to our like prehistoric, you know, for who knows million-year old brain of
Mm-hmm.
being cavemen or whatever the real story is, right? It's like life or death, you know?
Yep.
It is or it isn't. And
Fight or
then
flight.
yeah, 100%. So anyways, I got involved with not the best things. And I always remember the first time that I had used, uh, I was with a buddy of mine and I don't know, he was egging me on to do it. And this isn't, I don't want to put this on this kid, but you know, he was obviously going through his things in life, which led him to those decisions. And then he found something that was that like suppressed that. I was like, oh my gosh. So him kind of when you glorify things that definitely help you, even if you're naive or you're ignorant to the cause and the effect in a negative sense of what certain things do, whether it's shopping, gambling, addiction, drugs, whatever it is, you don't know. You just want to be like, oh, trust me, if you just, you know, buy this purse, it'll make you feel good. Or if you just have this drink, it'll make you feel, or if you know, just trust me, you should try, you know, we should go to Vegas and gamble, whatever your thing is. Right. And most people always have a thing, you know, some more broad and open than others, like obvious. But I remember him kind of like egging me on to be like, bro, just try it. Like, trust me, like genuinely, not even on some like like just trying to be a mean person, you know, like, trust me, bro. Like, it's not what you think it is. Like, trust. And I'll always remember the first time that I did, and I tried it, and it was like not even 2 minutes. And I was like, oh, this is what I've been missing my whole life. And I don't say this to glorify it. Like, I definitely don't. Mind you, we have to realize whatever it is, again, sex, gambling, drugs, addiction, shopping, whatever, they're temporary solutions to a permanent problem being a spiritual malady being something that we're lacking and we look to fulfill most of the time externally with, right? We're trying to fill this void, but it could only be fulfilled internally. And then you sit there and you're like, well, and you're, especially when you're going through all this, you're like, well, how can I fill this internally when essentially you're internally going through it? And again, it's this life journey that we're just trying to figure it out, you know? And I swear I heard Robert Downey Jr. I've always like said this and thought this, but I've heard Robert Downey Jr. say it once. I don't remember the percentage that he said, but I think it's a higher percentage. I think he said 80%. I swear it's like 98% of just getting out of our own way. You know, it's
so funny you say that, because I think back to when I was like young, like sort of in my 20s, and I must be one of the few people who was never, ever interested in anything to do with drugs. I got offered drugs and I'm like, no, bugger off, not interested. For me, it was always music that was my drug. Always. Wow. And I'm just a fan. I'm not a musician. But I always knew if I go to a club, if I put on a good tune, that puts me on a high. I don't need anything else.
Right.
And I've seen people like do drugs, and I just looked at them and I thought, what's lacking in your life?
Yeah,
what's 100%. Lacking that you have to go externally to a substance or whatever it is, alcohol or whatever, to make you feel like you're whole, when it's actually this.
Yeah,
you need to look there.
It's the spiritual malady, right? And I think it's having empathy, you know, towards those people. Or even like I have a lot of conversations and interviews about how do you feel if there's a negative comment. And I think, again, years ago, if you asked me this question, or probably, you know, whatever, not even that long ago, or just the journey of life at the point that I'm at now, you understand that, like, for one, hurt people. Like, if someone, I know like how, like, I love myself. I'm at a place in my life where I can honestly say, like, I love myself and who I am and who I'm continuously growing to be. So I know that at that place in my life where I'm at now, I would never intentionally and malintent hurt someone or harm someone or want to make someone feel bad. You know, I mean, if you've seen any of my content now, it's like, if anything, it would be asking more to be, you know, people that make fun of me or say more things. But my intention being like, well, anything that I put out there, I would never, like, I just want to connect with people, or hopefully they like the music. If not, like, maybe they get a good laugh, whether it's with me or at me, you know. But I'm at that point in my life where I know hurt people, and I would never do that. But I also can understand and have empathy for that person, because I've gone through some stuff in my life, and not to say that I've done as bad of things that people may say in comments, but I could understand being in that place, how easy it is to cast judgment, especially when you see someone else doing something maybe that you want to do, but you're held back by a lot of your self-limiting beliefs, or again, the excuses, whatever it may be. But just like you were saying, all this goes back to just having the awareness about any of it. Like, why do we do what we do? And that's huge. And unfortunately, a lot of people don't have, maybe it's like role models or figures in their life, or but like I essentially didn't either. I can say I'm very fortunate to have amazing, like, supportive parents that, like, no matter what, they would figure, if there's, no money, they figure out this. Like I said, my mom worked a second job to be able to just buy a lift ticket. Like,
Yeah.
but if I were to say anything, we live in the best day and age. I say this all the time. My role models were all on YouTube or all on Google or Reddit forums my role models were all that.
Lucky you.
You know? but anybody can say that, so, or my mentors, which again, I haven't gotten into the conversation of manifestation and law of attraction yet, but that's huge. And that turned into having real mentors in my life and people in my life that I could actually have full conversations of based off of my life, to have like then real constructive criticism.
Yeah.
Right. But I also had to be at a place where I could take the constructive criticism.
Yes. I had this conversation with my coach months and months ago, and she still kind of bangs on about this. And she always says, you got to take responsibility for yourself first, and look at yourself. And sometimes that can really be very hurtful. And the scars will always be there, and they itch sometimes, but you'll get through it. So don't take it too personally, and still go after what you want.
Yeah, and that's
you only have one life. So
yeah, and not to take it personally, right? And that's the biggest thing, because no matter what someone says, whether it is constructive criticism or someone's just saying something out of malintent, it's personal for some reason, like some deep-seated subconscious reason. Before you have the awareness, it's personal. Like, someone's saying this thing because it's personal. It's actually none of it's personal, right? Because if you have the awareness, you understand that no one that truly loves themselves, their life, and is like fulfilled would ever go out of their way to say anything like that. So it's having that understanding. And again, we have YouTube and the internet. Like, all your mentors are out there until then, leading into manifestation, law of attraction. What you focus most on in life, you attract. They will come into your life.
And I want to put a bit of a different spin on this. For me, a lot of my mentors are actually musicians I've never met. I will never meet because of what they do. So that's kind of a compliment to you as well, because I found one of your songs at a point where I needed to hear it. So yeah. So I truly believe in that. And this is like my kind of little direct line with music is I always get messages from it, from different artists at different points in my life, and they're so spot on. So you never know, you might write a song, and you have experienced that with some of yours. I've seen it on Instagram where people go, oh my God, I just needed to hear that. And that's exactly how I feel like I find my mentors. The people that give me a message and tell me what I need to look at or what I should be grateful for, blah, 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 whatever else it is. So I think musicians have a huge, huge part in all of this. You don't even have to have like these mindset coaches or whatever. Just go and look for a good musician, look at their life story and what they're now putting out lyrically and musically, and you will already gain so much from it if you actually listen and take it in.
No, I mean, I can totally agree with you. And I think a big part of what you just said, as well as wherever you're at in your life, it's sometimes just, maybe you could say, magically happens where what they're saying exactly in that moment of that song just resonates with you so deeply. It's like, wow, like that connected with me. And now maybe I feel like not only did I resonate with that, but I feel like this is speaking to me. And that's a big part of that is what's called the reticular activating system, right? With the RAS, which the RAS is what we focus most on, we attract. So say, for instance, say you're looking to buy a yellow Volkswagen buggy, right? You're looking to buy, but your lease is almost up on your Volkswagen Jetta, and you're looking to buy a yellow Volkswagen buggy, right? You start looking at Craigslist and Auto Trader and all these websites for cars, right? Your lease is almost up. Now you start looking, you're looking. And through that, say that week or that few days, or even that first day or few hours, now you're going to work, you're commuting to work, now you start seeing them. You're like, oh, I never noticed that before. You know, you start seeing them. Oh my gosh, they're everywhere. Ooh, maybe I want a white one. The white looks really nice. Maybe I want a white one, right? And you're like, I never would have thought of even getting in that color. It's because it's called the RAS, the reticular activating system. So what you focus on most, you attract. It's not that, and it's not like some woo-wah magic thing like, woo, I looked at it and they just disappeared. They were always there. It's just now you're aware of them because you've been focusing on that exact thing, right? So that goes for anything. And again, what you're saying with music, say, and I know this has happened with me. I could totally relate to what you just said. So if I'm, say, super upset, or say I broke up, I just got out of a breakup, right? And I'm super heartbroken and emotional, and I was hoping things were going to work out and they didn't. And now nothing makes sense. And I don't want to have to start over with someone else. And whatever those emotions are for someone that is going through a breakup, right? Then they hear a certain artist or a song, or even they start having conversations with people that just lead to that same topic. You know, it starts happening, and it's because it's happening. The strongest thing to lead to that, like the RAS or anything, you talk about manifestation, law of attraction, and what you focus on most, you attract, is the feeling. The emotion is an even stronger word. It's the emotion tied to that. So it's how do I feel? Say we are, and I love having this conversation about manifestation because it is so real. It is not a woo-wah thing. I think it's made to be a woo-wah thing. I think people now understand the concept a little bit. I think there's a bit better grasp on it now, but it's the most important part is that emotion. For having a conversation, right? I said this the other day. Is like if it's a car, or if it's a house, whatever it may be. What does it feel like to sit in that house? What's your coffee when you wake up in the morning? What's it all bringing the emotion, right? Because you would be happy. You know, it's like that's the house. You got to wake up. You're gonna love waking up in the morning. Oh, you love the bedroom that you're in. What does that feel like, especially when you're meditating, which is huge pair in law of attraction and manifestation, right? But that emotion, what does it feel like? What does it smell like? You know, who's in your house? Where do you meditate? Where do you sit to, if you read the morning paper, where do you sit and imagine this and build this like a simulation? Because I swear we are in one, but like a simulation, build this like a movie set in your head, and then draw that emotion, right? And then that emotion, when you bring it, when you open your eyes after the meditation, or that moment, you don't even have to call it meditation, that moment of just like self-love, I guess you could call it. Bring that emotion back. It's like, oh, if I was in the house right now, like how would I, like, I know how I'd feel, you know? So like move accordingly, and those things in your life will attract and lead step by step by step until you're walking on the stairs, you know, up to your bedroom. So it's a
It
hard
works.
I feel like it totally works. I'm glad that you can see that, or maybe you've experienced it even.
Oh, hell yeah. Yeah, I did. I have actually manifested living in London, which I did. So,
Wow.
manifested marrying an English speaking guy. Tick.
Awesome.
Manifested
Yeah.
living abroad. Tick. Manifested having you on my podcast. Tick. There you go. Living
It's a
proof.
real, it's a real, yeah, it's a real thing. And I think it's super important. And again, just all comes down to awareness. But yeah, that's pretty much outside of that parlay of conversations of some motivation. Yeah. But that's
Rabbit
where
hole.
it led me. No, well, honestly, I mean, I could talk about this forever, but honestly, what you said earlier about like music was just your drug. Now, that's kind of what happened for me. I'd been in and out of treatment and being just locked up and associated with, you know, again, not the best individuals, or people that I wanted to associate with were also on that frequency that I was. So I felt like there was a connection, right? But after one of the treatments that I'd come back from, there was just something different. I came back and to PA, and I don't know. I met someone like a buddy, like a friend that was in the club scene. Like when I met him, I went to a treatment out in California, and he was telling me about this whole like club life. Now, mind you, I never experienced any of that. My main thing were downers. So it's like most of the time I'd spend by myself, or, dipping out in a car or, whatever the
Ooh,
negative
you're
scenario
missing
was.
out.
Right. Yeah. I never did that. And then being on that and the things that it does to your body, it didn't want me to ever be like, oh, that's what I want to go do. Right. Until the one time I got sober, I had met this kid out in California at this treatment. He was like, yeah, if when you go home, like hit me up. He was from New York, and which isn't far from Pennsylvania. And he was like, yeah, whenever you get out, like hit me up and we'll go here, and here, like all these places that I'd never heard of. But the way he explained it was just like, oh, and I always, especially snowboarding, I always loved house music. It's just upbeat. And
Yeah.
now looking back, it's that frequency. This is how I feel all the time,
Yeah.
Ooh, it doesn't even
Yeah.
matter what it is, and
Yes.
most people are like, it's the same thing over and over. My dad will say that all the time. It's like, did this song just repeat? And I was like, no, it's not over yet, but I just want to live in that feeling. Right. So when I had
Mm-hmm.
come back, I hit him up. I did one thing that I had never done before. Every time I was trying to get sober, it's like, I'm going to have a new experience. I was so fearful around it. Like, what are people going to think? Like, what do I wear? What do I do? I had never gone out. I wasn't in the going out. I didn't do that in high school either. It wasn't like I was going to friends' parties, and I had like once or twice, but I was so insecure. I just was like, oh my gosh, like, they go to the same school as me. And like, what are they going to say? Like, I don't want to walk, if I was just, it just made me feel, I was just super insecure. Right. But
Mm-hmm.
I had gone, and right at that moment, like the first time I went and walked into the club doors, and like the music and the atmosphere, I felt like I did with snowboarding. I was like, I don't know what this is, right? Because you bump into someone and you think like, it's like how I grew up, you bump into someone and it's an issue,
Okay.
you bump into someone there and they're like, like they go like this,
Yeah.
and mind you, I understand I have this conversation again with people and they're like, it's probably the drugs or whatever. It's
No.
besides the point. Besides the point. I also know a ton of people also fast track that do it sober. It was just the frequency. I'd never experienced a frequency like that. Maybe when I had snowboarded, but it's hard for me to even say because maybe I just had more awareness around it at this point. But it was the frequency and the people and the music, and I was like, oh my gosh, like I don't know what it is in this industry, but like I just want to do this. Like ideally, I knew in my head subconsciously, I was like, I want to make whatever this is. I want people to feel, I want to make this, and I want people to feel the way that I feel, when I hear it and what it's making me feel like right now. Like I want to make this. I don't know how to do it. Right. So little by little, I would start going to, sometimes I would go to New York, to these clubs like 3 times a week, and I would never sleep, just not, and I'm not condoning not sleeping, but I was so fascinated by it.
Mm-hmm.
Right. Just like you said. So it became my drug. Now, mind you, it's still an external thing. Right. Which then fast forward, I was like, how can I do it? I started meeting people and club promoters, and they were like, well, if you want to do this for a living, if you just DJ, you're going to hit a ceiling. You have to learn how to produce. So I started taking on producing. And again, it's funny because you think I would have done all this way sooner, even than snowboarding, because my dad does all this. And, but at that point, I was just, when things happen, they happen. Right. And I did it and I became obsessed, like unhealthily, like just obsessed. And I think it's like, just like anything, it's just the balance, and I didn't have that understanding at the time because I knew that it was way more positive and moving my life forward than any of the other stuff I was involved in. Like that wasn't obvious. So I said, again, it's like, I kind of got the case of the efforts again, that this is all I was going to do and nothing else. I was just going to do
Wow.
this. I'm going to stay up nonstop. I'm never going to sleep. There's so many times I fall asleep and just keep going. Like it was like, I'm
Very
packed out.
healthy indeed.
Very well. Essentially, I
Instant
just switched.
sarcasm.
Yeah, I mean, well, essentially, I switched one addiction for another, right?
Yeah,
It's like
exactly.
workaholism. I just became a workaholic, but I was so obsessed. I even looking back, I don't know if I don't think there's no one that I know that could have taken me out of that place of just like obsession. I just became like a madman, just I got to learn all this and I got to make this song, and then I learn how to mix. I got to learn how to produce. I got to learn how to, I didn't
Yeah.
sing at the time, I didn't sing at the time, but I have to put everything together and it has to make sense. And then finally I had made one song that to me, I was like, I'm like, something's happening. Like it made sense to me. It sounds
Right.
like it could be at the club, because at first it's just a lot of beep, boop, boop, and it all sounds bad, you know,
You're right.
for, you know, for a long time.
Mm,
But yeah,
mm,
so that's how the path that had kind of led me
mm.
to music.
Yeah. It's funny, I had this conversation with a friend a few weeks ago about this whole thing, and she's what she calls herself a woo-woo woman. Because a lot of people, what we talk about, they still call it woo-woo. I don't know why. You know,
Yeah.
manifestation and all that kind of stuff. And she said to me, well, she sort of said like what I experience is more like audio voyance instead of clairvoyant.
Okay.
So it's kind of the music speaking instead of like what do you want to call ghosts or spirits or whatever else there is. And I'm like,
Yeah.
oh, okay, well, that kind of makes sense to me. So I'm sort of wondering if other musicians maybe have similar gifts to just kind of hear the tunes and hear something that others don't, and then be able to put that into a song for others to experience. I don't know, have you ever thought about that? That maybe you have
Yeah.
something along those lines?
Yeah, maybe. I mean, I'm sure it's quite possible. I know for me, it was just a whole lot of, it was just consistent work, you know, just a lot of work
Mm,
ethic to be able, because I mean, maybe there's someone that could just grow up and like pick up a computer and know how to completely uh, draw all the automation and all the audio channels and know how to mix and master and do all that stuff just by turning on a computer. Highly
mm,
doubt it, but I'm sure, you know, usually if you could think about it, there's someone. Um,
yeah.
but I know for me, it was, maybe all of it was channeled, you know, like through the consistency of just working nonstop, and you know, you break the 10,000 hour rule. But I, I think for me it was just, and I like to reiterate this and say this all the time because I think there's a lot of people out there, and I do get the talent thing a lot, which I am super appreciate people being so kind in that way. But for me, I also want anybody else that's trying to do the same thing as me, or maybe they look up to somebody else. I want to reiterate it because I want them to understand it's just an insane amount of work, right? Didn't make, I'll tell you one thing, one difference, unlike snowboarding, like music did not come like what I felt naturally. You know, it wasn't like I picked up and I was like, ooh, like I could pick up this program. I had to go through just about every DAW, digital audio workstation. I had to go through just about every other program until I found Logic, which is the program that I use, where it started to kind of click for me, right? Just a little bit, enough where I was like, okay, I like, it gets the ball rolling. And then I really become obsessed, and it's like, how do I understand all of this, right? Because there's so many, there's for anybody, there's so in the field, there's so many little tiny intricacies to how to learn to do any of it. So I say that because I want people to understand it's just a lot of, it's just an insane work ethic, you know, whatever it is. Now, I would say definitely put balance behind it, because that had led me, even when I found music, it had led me off the path, you know, of involving myself in things that I shouldn't have, you know, at the time. But it's just, there's like limits, you know, and it's kind of just, it's understanding balance, and definitely appreciation and gratitude to being able to get to do any of it, you know, because I still have to have that in my daily meditations, you know,
Mm,
consistently every single day now. Just like how grateful I am to get to do all of these things, because it's so easy in societal, you know, you become used to doing something for so long, and then you don't like doing one of the things that you love doing, and it's like, why do I freaking have to do this? You know, it's like, what are you complaining about? Like, really? And it's
yeah.
just, again, human nature. And it's just having the awareness when those feelings or those emotions come up, that we, you know, we take a step back and be like, what am I even like? That's insanity. That's insane. It doesn't even make sense. Like, it's just past programming and situations and the people and the experiences and the things that we had growing up that are just so ingrained in us and our DNA, that want to
Mm-hmm.
just react, you know, react to a certain situation not going the way we either want it to, or we understand, you know, what's happening. Uh, but yeah, I say
Yeah.
that just because it's work, you know.
Yeah.
But maybe
Yeah.
people channel it now. Now maybe it allows me to channel it a lot more now, because I understand it. So I could just
Mm.
sit there and be like, you know, because there'll be times where I work on something and I'm just like, oh, that's why sometimes I can't listen to music. Like, I'll just drive. If I have like hours long drive, sometimes I can't listen to music. I have to have a
Oh.
podcast on or something, because I'll get ideas and I don't have my computer, so I can't work on them, and it'll drive me insane. So
Oh,
it'll
no.
drive me nuts.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, you know. But yeah, I'm
Mm,
sure there's definitely times that it's just channeled. Like this is what I want to make, and this is how I feel, and I just make it.
yeah. I think I was just thinking while you were talking about this. I mean, having that kind of ability to channel or whatever you want to call it is one thing, but like you said, you'd have to put in the work. It's not just like, oh, here it is. All right, do it for me. That's not
Yeah,
how it works. So I agree with you on that one. You have to put in the work and do what you need to do to actually use what you've been given and then be able to kind of share it with the world if that's what you want to do or whatever you want to do with it. So I agree. You can't just say, oh, I've got this gift or whatever it is, and then not work on and with it. That's just not how it works. So I agree with
yeah,
you
100%.
100%. Yeah.
Yeah, and maybe there is someone out there that has people that they could just be like, here, just make it, and that's totally cool too. Now,
Yeah,
mind you, just
sure.
like anything, if you're just given it, I don't think you'll ever have the same amount of appreciation towards that thing, no matter if it's work or it's a material thing that you've always wanted, like the car or the house. If
Mm-hmm.
someone else did all the work in order to get it and you just got it,
Yeah.
it's impossible. You wouldn't have that understanding. There's no awareness. There's just the awareness gap, right? You wouldn't have the appreciation for that thing
Yeah.
as much as you would have if you actually put forth the effort. You just
Mm.
wouldn't have that appreciation. And plus, it's that feels good. When you put through and you're doing all the things you necessarily don't want to do in order to get to where you want to be, and then it happens. You're like,
Mm-hmm.
oh my lord, there's no better
Yeah.
there's no better feeling.
Yeah.